Welcome back to the Growing Together podcast with me, Sunny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
A podcast where we talk about everything under the sun related to growth, becoming the best version of yourself. And this episode, while it's actually New Year's Eve while we're recording it, it'll be the first episode of the new year, which is so exciting.
Insane.
It's crazy how it's gonna be. Well, it's crazy how, when you're listening to this, that it's 2023, and where did 2022 go?
It's insane just how, I believe when I was setting this up, I had mentioned what episode we're on. It's 35 now, right?
Yeah, 35.
That's insane. Just how many podcast episodes we made, and then just how fast the year has just gone, Yeah.
It's crazy. How are you feeling this morning, Cesar?
Pretty good. Really energized. Just thinking of, I kind of woke up this morning thinking of all the things that happened this year.
Yeah.
And we have our goals over here for this past 2022.
Yeah, we still need to make a vision board.
Yeah.
Probably today for
And
2023.
Yeah, and it's just there's still a lot that still needs to be completed on there. But looking at it, I'm like, man, I did quite a bit though. You know, there's a lot that I did.
Yeah,
but there's
you gotta celebrate the little wins, even if not everything was completed. It's about what did you do?
Exactly.
So
yeah,
it is. It feels weird. I also told Cesar, I was like, we gotta go get grapes from the store.
Oh yeah,
because it's New Year's Eve. Gotta eat 12 grapes at midnight. One for each month of the year. I told Cesar too, which I feel like this ties into the episode actually, that we need to walk our suitcases around the neighborhood. Because
she's also on TikTok.
It's not TikTok. It's it's actually in Hispanic households that they do this. I saw and you walk around the neighborhood with your suitcase, and it means you'll travel a lot this year. Yeah. I'm just saying, you can't knock it until you try it. And Cesar does not want to do it, which makes me so sad.
I'll record you doing it if you want to make a TikTok out of it or a short. No,
I want to do it because you can't knock it till you try it. I'm just saying, I feel like it could work. And I think that this plays into the episode today, because today I wanted to talk about manifestation. And specifically because, one, I think there are a lot of misconceptions about manifestation, which is why people are like, it's a bunch of bullshit. Which I have been one of those people, because I really didn't understand it until I was researching more about it. And so I feel like it's fitting with the new year, everyone's saying goals, that we talk about manifestation. And can you really manifest the life of your dreams? So, what are your thoughts so far, Cesar? What are you feeling?
When the first thing that comes up whenever someone talks about manifesting or whatever the case is, again, I'm not to knock anyone who has those types of beliefs or whatever the case is, but what comes to mind is there's a book. It's called The Secret? The Secret, yes.
That's where it comes from. The Secret, the Law of Attraction. It's all derived from that. Yeah. But you'll see, I think that you'll change your mind as we have this conversation, because that's what was happening as I was researching. I became more aware of what it actually is and how it works in practice, and also science behind it. There's not a lot of science behind it, but there is some science behind it. So I think that you'll change your mind as we have this conversation.
I'd like to hear.
So, I think we should be open to any conversation, on this podcast. And I think that this is important too, especially with the new year. So first, I'll let you know what manifestation is. And there's a couple different definitions. So the first one is manifesting is based on the idea that you can think your dreams into reality. By having a clear vision and focusing on it through a variety of manifestation methods, you can attract your dream into your life. That's the idea. The dictionary definition is an event, action, or an object that clearly shows or embodies something, especially in a theory or an abstract idea. And then something else that I wrote down was the conscious creation of the circumstances and outcomes that make for a fulfilling life. And then I also wrote down, because you mentioned The Secret, manifestation was popularized by books like The Secret and The Law of Attraction. And then I was reading like this article. Some of these sources probably aren't the most credible sources, but this is where I was reading off of, so I figured I should like bring it up. And so this says, although manifesting is about turning your dreams into reality, it does require you to take proactive steps toward whatever it is you desire. You shouldn't expect it to happen instantly, but even though it's a lengthy process, that time is a small price to pay for a hopefully profound impact on your life. And it says there is some science behind it. The research on growth mindset driven by Dr. Carol Dweck clearly shows that believing you can do something makes it more likely that you will actually do that thing. And I think...
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So I think the thing is, so this is like, I had this kind of broken down into like a couple parts, like talking about what manifestation is and what it isn't, and then like the common misconceptions about manifestation, and then how to actually manifest things. And I think one of the things is that people have this idea that it's just having like these thoughts, you know, that you're just thinking, I'm going to do this so it happens. But a clear part of manifestation is actually like putting action to those thoughts.
Yeah, no,
so does
definitely.
that make you feel differently towards that?
No, I mean that's what I always thought they were trying to say whenever it was like, man, people were like, I'm gonna manifest this, like just manifest it and it'll be true. It's like, well, I mean, if you're like manifesting like that you'll, I don't know, have some sort of extravagant thing, like you need to like find how to get that, you know, and that requires you to do X. Well, there's like, it kind of helps you. I hope, I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking maybe they think that it's like a way for them to like, kind of like how we put like a vision board up. We put a thing up and it's like a constant reminder, but like we're constantly thinking of it. We're like believing in, no, I believe that I can do X, Y, or Z. And that helps you hopefully get to that goal. Like that was it that psychologist or that
The
doctor said. Yeah, it's like,
yeah,
I definitely understand
think it's
that.
funny, like, because when I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, it really is, like, related back to having a growth mindset. If you believe in yourself enough, you're more likely to work on those things to make it happen. So I think a huge part, and anyone who actually manifests out there could, like, let me know, a huge part of manifesting is, like, believing that you can do it, and then, like, actually, I feel like I lost my complete train of thought, actually. But yeah, I think it's really just related back to having a growth mindset and like working towards what you want. It's not as simple as like thinking like, yeah, I want this, so this will
Like,
happen. I think it's also bigger than just like simple, like, I want this in my life. I think it's like believing, I think it's more broad. Like, you know, it's not like, oh, I want to manifest that I'll have a Ferrari.
Yeah,
no,
things
it's
like
more
that, yeah.
about manifesting an entire, like, manifesting change in your life, and then like obviously taking the action to make that change
yeah.
too. Like,
Yeah.
it's a whole mindset thing. And I think when it comes to mindset, it's so interesting to see how much our thoughts influence our actions.
Yeah, and I think that's where, yeah, I would understand where someone says like, oh, I'm going to manifest this by thinking about it, you know, or constantly thinking about it, and that's a thought. And hopefully that thought can have you take some sort of positive action for it to be a good thing, obviously, because you don't want to be manifesting bad things, right? You know, you don't want to, because there's some people out there that'll be doing some weird stuff. But like, I think like people that say they want to manifest X, Y, or Z. Like, as long as it's a good thing, it's a growth, something that helps you grow into being like a good person, or, you know, career goal or whatever it is. Like, there's a lot that I think that specific thing can actually help people and you and me in the long run, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, I find that this other reason that like I like thought about this topic is 'cause I got a new journal in the mail the other day, and I was so excited because
Sunny in her journals.
I love journals, and I'm really going to start journaling this year, and but in a way that's like productive for like just my mind. And I was outlining things in my journal, like how I want to do it. And I put on like the cover page, like 2023. I think it was like, can you actually hand me my journal? It's over there.
Wait, where's it at?
I want to read it. Yeah, it's right there on top of the thing.
Oh, sorry, cables. It's the orange one, right?
Yeah. I honestly thought it was red on the thing, but it's orange.
It's orange, right? Oh, I thought it was just me being colorblind.
No, it's orange. So I put on the like the beginning of the journal. The year 2023, the year my dreams become reality. And it was like something I was thinking of because me and you specifically have been saying like we're on the cusp of greatness, and I feel like 2023 is the year of like fruition, where everything comes to fruition. Like we've spent all of 2022 working, and this year everything that we've been working on comes to fruition. And honestly, I think seeing that makes me more inclined to act in a way that makes my dreams become a reality. And so yeah, I was like, I thought of this topic because I'm literally like practicing kind of manifestation without knowing that I'm practicing manifestation. But the other thing is that like manifestation takes work. It's not as simple as believing something will happen. To manifest what we want, we need to believe we can do it, feel strongly enough about it to be persistent, and ultimately engage in the behaviors that bring about the outcomes we desire, which is from berkeleywellbeing.com, which I think is a huge disconnect where people are like manifesting is stupid because they don't understand what the actual practice of manifesting is. Because like in that like sentence, it says that you have to feel strongly enough about it and engage in behaviors that ultimately lead to your outcomes. So there's a huge behavior side to it, like you actually doing stuff that's going to help you work towards that goal. It's not just thinking it, it's actively changing your behaviors to model what you want, you know?
To that specific goal or need or whatever it is. But yeah, no, that is 100% like, I think that's pretty positive, you know, for the most part. Like I can see how that can help somebody get to the goal they need to get. Like for example, you writing in the journal.
Yeah,
like,
I feel
journaling
like it's
is
not,
a really
like,
good thing too.
Well, it's funny because we'll get to that too.
Yeah.
But it also, something that came up in my research was this idea of like self-fulfilling prophecies, which I feel like are very interrelated too.
Yeah, I've heard of expand on that.
Yeah. I mean, so there's actually two types of self-fulfilling prophecies. Self-imposed prophecies occur when your own expectations influence your actions, and other imposed prophecies occur when others' expectations influence your behavior. So I think the thing with self-fulfilling prophecies, and I also think with manifestation, it goes both ways. If, for instance, you don't think you're capable of something, you're most likely not going to work like towards that because you're like already telling yourself I can't do it, so you're already fulfilling that prophecy you have in your mind that you can't do something. So it can work for good and work for bad, but it's also it's very related because you know, like, yeah, I mean, if you think you can do something, obviously it makes sense that you would take actions that align with the fact that you can do something.
But if you can't, if you say like, oh man, I can't do this, like it's gonna fail or whatever, like, or this is gonna happen, like you're kind of like,
it goes back to like the way that we talk to yourself. And I feel like such a hypocrite talking about self-talk because I'm someone who, like, sometimes when I'm in a really bad mental like spot, like I have such negative self-talk, like, so, but it really goes back to how we talk to ourselves matters. Like how we believe in ourselves and what we think of ourselves truly influences our everyday lives, you know, and what we become and who we become. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I do. I think that a lot of what we tell ourselves, like our, you know, our the noise or the link, like the words that we're putting in our mind or things that we're reading, all of that really does affect you, whether you think it does it or not, you know. So like that's one of the really important reasons of always keeping in mind of like some of the things that like you're consuming, I guess, or even like, you know, whatever it is you're wanting to manifest, is what I was saying.
Well, I think it's just also how you talk to yourself. Obviously
how
what
you
you
talk to yourself
has to do with it, but I was more so talking about how we talk to ourselves and like what we think about ourselves and how we see ourselves, you know. How we see ourselves is very important. Yeah,
no, of course. I mean, that has a lot to do that alone can make you change like the way you want to be, especially if you're like wanting to change something about yourself, you know, like whether it's physically or whatever the case is, whether it's something you want to learn, and you saying certain things about like how you are, or how you feel, like can definitely affect that. So
Yeah, and like again, it goes back to like probably a negative side too, is like if you think you're not enough, if you think that you can't do something, or if things will always be this way, you might get stuck in like that like kind of cycle,
little rabbit hole.
like it doesn't get better because you're not actively trying to make it better, and like you kind of just, some people believe like there's nothing they can do to change their circumstances, and I can also relate to people who feel that way, because a lot of times I've been stuck where I'm like, there's just nothing I can do, nothing I would even try to do would work, so like why even give it a chance? And I think you don't think about how like detrimental those kind of thoughts are to your goals and your life as a whole. You're not really think about the effect that those words will have over long term. And so like when things don't get better, you've just you proved to yourself that like they don't, so therefore you're still gonna not take any action. And like it's just crazy. To me it's just crazy how something so small as like a negative like thought can influence essentially the rest of our lives. And that's kind of scary.
I mean, it is, because I mean a lot of the reasons why I think most people would say it's a frightening fact is because a lot of what we think obviously ends up turning into something that we do. So if you're constantly thinking bad like things or whatever the case is, sooner or later, not to say it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy or manifesting, sooner or later you may end up acting on something, or that thing may end up happening because you put yourself in a situation. You know, like I don't go put myself in bad situations because I know that
I don't think people actively try to put themselves in bad situations either, but that what you were just saying reminds me of an example where so there have been a couple occasions in my life where I had really bad anxiety about something, and then the thing that I was scared about happened. And so it proved to me that whenever I was anxious, in my mind it was like, whenever you're anxious, you're probably anxious for a right reason, because on 2 or more occasions I was right about something, which is a negative like pattern to be in, because then every time you are anxious or you're feeling something's going to happen, sometimes nothing is like, there's nothing to be anxious about, but because you've been right in the past, it's shaped how you see the future, and it's hard to get out of those cycles. I was telling my mom about it. I was like, it's the worst feeling when you have been right in the past about something. So now you're trying to like predict the future, which is horrible. It's very self-sabotaging. And I've tried to do better about not doing that, because I struggle a lot with anxiety and trying to predict what's going to happen. But it kind of relates back to that too. It's like, you know, what we think, again, it sometimes it comes to fruition because we then act a certain way without even really understanding everything that's going on, not really thinking, because we're doing everything what feels like subconsciously. But then I wanted to kind of get into some misconceptions about manifestation. So I kind of looked up what misconceptions were out there. Obviously I had my own. But after I read a lot about the definitions and their origins and what it is in practice, I kind of was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And so the first one, I love how it's worded. It says it's not something that happens. The misconception is it's something that happens to us, not through us. So it obviously happens through us, through our actions, through our work. It's not something that happens to you. And you know the saying that life doesn't happen to you; it happens for you. You know, have you ever heard
I've heard that? Yeah.
Heard that. So it's manifestation isn't something that's happening to you. It's something that's happening through your actions, through your mindset.
Yeah.
which I think in essence isn't like a bad thing. It's not like this. I think a lot of people, and I know I was talking to my sister about it when I was planning this episode. So I was like, hey, like, what do you think about manifestation? And she was like, well, like, I think of it as like kind of like just working towards your goals. Like, it's like essentially what it is. And so we talked about it, and I thought that was like interesting, but it's not something that happens to us. Like, I think the reason everyone's so pressed about like, well, everyone who manifests is like silly. They're like, I think it's because they think that there are people out there that just think by thinking something is going to happen. Like, I think, therefore I am, you know?
Yeah, like,
and it's not like that's the misconception, is that it's not that, you know, but like the way we see ourselves does have a huge impact on the process. So, okay, so we're about like mid-conversation. How are you feeling about manifestation now? Like, what do you think about it?
I think, again, like, based on what we just talked about, that for the most part, it could lead to some growth, positive growth for the most part. As long as, like, I think as long as at the end of the day, the thing you're thinking about and you're writing about, whatever the case is, like, is a good thing. You know, like, I think, like, whether it's, you know, you want to get better at a certain skill, or you want to get better at speaking on this podcast, Caesar.
I think like that. I think you're doing like very like it's broader than that, you know.
Oh no, I know that.
Like
I'm
when
just
we talk about like manifestation,
I know.
it's like manifesting like not like an entire life. Like we talk about obviously taking it one step at a time, but it's broader, like creating the life that you want through like manifestation. Yeah,
I know it's broader than just like a simple.
It's not about like achieving a skill or like, you know.
But that can ultimately be like if you're trying to manifest like, oh, I want to, you know, own a home one day, right? Like I'm going to manifest a home. Like, okay, so how do you do that? Well, maybe it's getting a different career or whatever the case is. But
that's what I'm saying. Like, you know,
it's
like there's so many things in that process. That's kind of what I'm saying, is that there's like a lot of steps in the process.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say too. There's a lot of steps, but I think for the most part, based on what you've said and what you've been reading and explaining here, is that for the most part it can be used for good, and I think it can be a good thing for people to like.
I mean, growth. I guess I'm asking, like, would you consider yourself someone who would want to like manifest?
I feel like we're already kind of doing that, which is why I was saying is like we're not necessarily calling it like manifesting. Like maybe it's a more modern term that was brought up in that book. Like I said, it was made popular by The Secret. It was already something that was like.
But I think the reason we're not calling it manifesting is because of the like.
The connotation.
It's the connotation around it. And essentially, like, we have, but I think, like, this year, when I think about this conversation, I actually really want to try some of these things that we'll talk about later. Because I think that, like, we've been doing, like, the right things, but I think, like, what if we could, like, really push our limits and try, like, this method, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of...
I'm dating a crazy
woman. No, because like I said, there's another term that's been used before, like I think even before because I think The Secret came out in the 90s, I think.
No.
2000s? 2000s? Oh, okay.
2006 to be exact.
I mean, a lot of like at least from like the Cliff Notes, and like I had a friend or two that like
this man said the Cliff Notes. Didn't read the book, but I read
I had friends that like really like lived by it for years, and then they were talking about like, man, you gotta read The Secret, it's such a good book, or whatever the case is.
My question is, how is that any different than reading like something from a millionaire or like a Tony Robbins and then putting exactly what they say
but that's what I'm trying to say is that again, I'm not bashing on The Secret. I'm not bashing on like Tony Robbins or Grant Cardone or all these other people that have these like, you know, 10x your life or whatever the case is. They all have really good like there's certain things that can be good about that you can apply to your life or your business or whatever the case is, which is what I was trying to say earlier though, was that I feel like a lot of what the Secret and like manifesting before it became like manifesting this or whatever the case is. If we go, I mean, we don't have to go back that long ago. It's like, it's still used today. People will say, hey, pray on it. You know, like it's like someone telling you, hey, I'm going to pray on this thing. It's like you're putting that thought in your mind. Like, all right, I'm going to pray on this. Like, do I need to do this? It's like, it's kind of like, it's in a sense like you're kind of like, not to say you're manifesting because you're not doing it. It's going to like you said, it's not through you. What is it again?
It doesn't happen to you.
It doesn't happen to you. It happens through you. So like in some sense, people have been quote unquote manifesting for years because
I think prayer is a little bit different though, and it's funny because my sister brought it up. Like when I talked to her, she goes like, I think of it as like praying and then like, you know, knowing that like God will provide. And I'm like, I think it's a little different because I think with prayer, people just like don't equate their actions back to prayer. They just like,
well, some don't. I mean, for the most part, I feel like whenever you do pray and like you're kind of putting that thought in the back of your head too at the same time, that like, you know, whether you're asking for something, like whether it's like, you know, you not being so anxious or whatever the case is, like it's something that can hopefully help you navigate that issue, problem, whatever the case is. Whereas manifesting is, I find it very similar, which is what I'm saying. It's like with manifesting, it's just like a more hardcore version of it, of you actually having to put the work in, or like to get to that thing that you.
I feel like that goes back to, this is like a whole different conversation. Yeah. But I remember like learning about this in high school, and like when I like took like religion classes, or like, you know, even just now, is that like faith without works, like,
yeah,
you know, like there isn't like, you can't just have faith, like there has to be works. So yeah, but so that was one of the misconceptions, is that it happens to you and not through you, but it is something that happens through you. The second is it's about the end destination, and that's also like a like kind of false claim. It's actually about like the journey, like how do you learn and grow through the process of getting to where you want to be. Like the most growth happens when you're trying to get to that goal, you know? And that's something I definitely learned a lot this year by like really like, man, it was a year full of like hard work and like just a lot happening, but like having to trust that what I was doing was the right thing. And like what I learned in the process, as difficult as some days were, was so much more valuable than like where I'm at now, you know? Not that saying I don't love where I'm at now, like I do, obviously I always want to get better, but everything I learned, I think you couldn't have learned if you didn't go through what you went through, you know?
No, yeah, there's a lot in just whether it's a good or a bad experience, something that you're going through, like there's a lot that you can take away. And that makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was like, like mind blown when I was hearing that, because I think that like one of the things that fascinates me, like especially, this is so funny, I'm going to bring up Target. I find a way to bring up Target in every conversation.
Target jar.
But when I first started working at Target, especially as a leader, and I saw like I kind of saw my career at that point going there because I was just moving up, and I would ask people, like, you know, what's your story? Basically, like, what's your origin story at Target? And, like, how did you, especially, like, some of the higher-ups, like, how did you get to where you are? What's your background? Just to see, like, what their path looked like. And, like, the difference in paths in those conversations was always so intriguing to me, because you realize that so many people had, like, so many different pit stops and, like, you know, roadblocks, but, like, they still got there. And I think that's so inspiring when you think about, like, I think the most... Like, that's something I always ask people when I see that they have a role that I'm like, okay, I'm like, well, how did you get there? What did that look like for you? Knowing full well that my journey might not look like that, but, like, getting insight from their journey and, like, how they approached roadblocks, how they approached challenges and all that kind of stuff. I think you can learn from other people, too, when you look at, like, their life and see how, like, things break down.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. The other thing was getting attached to a certain outcome. So obviously, like, for instance, like, you may have like this dream, like this concept of what your ideal life looks like in a year. Like, let's talk about a year, because, you know, we're in 2023 when this airs, and like what we want this year to look like. But I think that, like, if based on what I read about this, like, getting attached to that ideal outcome is kind of like, it's not that you can't have, like, obviously a goal in mind, but you should also be flexible in what that looks like. You ever, like, think about how there were things you didn't know you needed in this life until they were brought to you?
Yeah, like, whether it was, I mean, obviously it could be something physical, but it can also be, like, something you needed to learn or you needed to understand.
Or even, like, people, like, I didn't know, like...
Yeah, or obviously there's people,
I don't know if Alyssa will know this, but, like, I have obviously really great friends, but now, like, I have Alyssa, who I work with, and, like, she's one of my best friends, and, like, And like I never knew I needed friendship like this. Like, and it's something so simple, but I'm so grateful for it. And like that's not something I knew I needed. And I think also like when you think about your life, you think about it because of based off like your wants, but not necessarily like your needs. It's all, I think a lot of it is shaped on like what you want as a person, not knowing that there are certain things that might be more beneficial for you. Like I think we have a bias within ourselves. And so you have to be flexible and understanding that like maybe I was given this because this is actually what I need, you know? And how can I grow through what I was given?
Yeah.
You know? And so I thought that was interesting, too, was like, you still have to be flexible. You know, we can't control everything. You know, you can't control, like, I think the common misconception, too, that wasn't even, like, on this list that I have was that, like, we can control, like, our future. And we can't. Like, the thing is, you can only have so much control in this life. A lot of things are out of our hands, which is such a hard thing, not just for me, but I think for a lot of people. Like, the ability, like, that there's some things that are just merely out of your control.
Yeah, I mean, we can't. I mean, there's only so much you can do with even manifesting, right? Like, this on the topic that we're on. So, like, there's some things that just are out of your control. Like, you can't control the weather or whatever the case is. So, yeah, like there's some things that you just have to leave up to talking about faith. Just like,
it's like, like, it's, I think it's a hard thing to cope with sometimes when you have like such a need for control and like to feel like you're in charge of your life. I think most people want to feel like they're steering the ship.
I mean, for the most part, I think most people want to be in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And take control and, you know, what direction you're going in. So I think for the most part, I think many people would agree that they want to do that. They want to be in that role.
It's kind of similar how to like when first, like this used to happen a lot. Like I used to drive a lot here and like I would have you obviously in the passenger seat. And like I wasn't as anxious when I was driving because I knew I had a certain level of control. And like I just felt better knowing that I was in control versus you driving, because then I was like, not that I didn't trust you, but like you're putting like someone else in control, which like feels like just weird for me, especially because I have so much anxiety. So it kind of reminds me of that, of like.
I mean, obviously, like that's a whole another topic of conversation, you know. But like,
no, but it relates.
Yeah, it does relate. No, it does. It's everyone's different, you know. So including you.
Yeah, it was actually on this list. It was like, you have total control over your destination is a common misconception. It's like, no, you don't. Like, we can, like, the whole time that I was thinking about manifesting is, like, I thought back to my elementary school because we were the Dream Like Dragons. And
dream, believe, achieve, right?
Yeah, it was like, dream, believe, achieve. And it was like, man, they were teaching us manifesting from the very beginning.
I think my elementary school had a similar motto. It's like something about, like, yeah, forget the motto, but yeah, I was trying to think
that
of
one.
it,
It's funny though because it's been like obviously years, and like I still remember it. Dream, believe, achieve, and like, yeah. So I was like, damn, what the fuck? But so yeah, so those are like some common misconceptions. And by this point, like when I was writing this, I'm like, oh, I am for sure into manifesting. Like this is gonna be crazy this year. It's gonna be great. So I like kind of shaped this as like, how do you manifest? If you had like, before I tell you this, if you had like to like guess how you manifest, what would you say?
I mean, like I said, we're kind of already doing that. I think like a lot of it is putting, you know, whether it's in writing, you know, I'm over here looking at our vision board, putting up some kind of reminder of those things, whether it's something you're reading constantly, I don't know, something that works either visually, like you see it, so it makes you remember like that's a goal, whatever the case is. Or, just like writing down like your progress of you getting to that, like whether it's writing, a visual reminder, possibly even having somebody who can help you along the way too as well. Like whether it's you, that's like accountability, like all that. It's all very similar to like things that we're already doing.
Yeah.
I think, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. So you're kind of close. Like there is a visual aspect to it. So, there's actually I don't think there's one right way to manifest based off what I read. There's a bunch of methods, and you don't have to use all of them. I think it's like about like the same way, like, you know, goal planning. Not everyone has the same method. Like, we're all different people, therefore not every manifestation method will work for you. So there's a couple ones, and one is having a manifestation journal, which I have.
Journal.
And just to write down your thoughts and give yourself an outlet, not to just talk about what you want, but also to write down your fears so you can have them out there and like not like within you, because it's natural. Like, you're gonna have fears. Like, even when we're doing what's best for us, we get like scared, we get like uncomfortable, we get full of doubt. So it's important.
Yeah.
Another one is the 3-6-9 method, which I kind of want to try. 3-6-9, damn, she fine. That's what it reminded me of. It involves writing down what you'd like to manifest 3 times in the morning, 6 times during the day, and 9 times in the evening. And I think that goes back to, like, it's always on your mind. You're always doing it. One of the other methods is positive affirmations. And I think this goes back to how we talk to ourselves. How we talk to ourselves is very important. If you're telling yourself you're a worthless piece of shit, you're going to feel like a worthless piece of shit. So, like...
Yeah, Sunny, stop telling yourself that.
That's what I say to myself in the morning every day. No, I'm better. Like, I do feel... I have, like, my down days, which I'm trying to, like, do better about. But affirmations, I think, are something, and it's so I like it. It's so adorable when, like, you teach kids this at a young age, because my sister does affirmations with, like, her daughter. She goes, I am kind, I am beautiful, I am smart. And I think that's so important, because, like, the world will make you feel like you're not, you know. There will be situations that you feel like you're not because of the external factors. But if you truly believe something about yourself, I think that, like, it kind of goes back to how you know, like, you look good, you feel good. Like, whenever you get dressed up for something, you feel better. So I like that. The fourth one that I wrote down was a vision board, which we have been doing. So I think that's important. That's what some people do. And it's, like, also having that visual, like, reminder always in front of you of, like, this is what I'm working towards. And I know someone else who said that was Dylan for Digital Podcasters. So, like, he has a vision board.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, I think it's important to, like, constantly look at what you're trying to achieve and what does, like, success for you look like. What does your ideal life look like? And, like, then obviously you can think about what it looks like and then how do you get there? And then this one I thought was interesting because it says ask, believe, co-create, receive. So it's like asking for what you want, believing that, like, it can happen, and then, like, obviously help create it. Create that, help, like, yourself make it a reality. And I think that's important because it also puts that work factor back into it. Like, you've got to work towards it. It's not as simple as saying asking for it and believing that it's going to happen. Like, there's so much action, I think, that gets so left out of this process that people, like, think that you just don't have to, like, do any work, but you do. I think, like, you know, it goes back to, like, nothing in this life is free. You got to work for it. And, like, the same works with, like, manifestation. You got to work for what you want. So, yeah. I mean, I just think this is so interesting. I think it's, like... For so long, I had so many different, like, feelings towards manifestation, and, like, I didn't, like, knock anyone who, like, chose, like, to, like, talk about it, because I'm like, you know, what works for you works for you, and but I definitely did have that, like caution about it of, like, what is this? I didn't really understand it, but after doing, like, some research into, like, what it is and, you know, learning more about it, I feel like it's a logical thing. I feel like it's a logical method of trying to get what you want, and, like, obviously putting in the work to do so. It's just packaged a different way than, like, I feel like it's very similar to having, like, a growth mindset, being a goal planner. Like, I feel like it's just on the same wavelength.
No, I mean, like I said, I feel like it's something, not to say like it's recycled, but there's a lot of things that it's pulled from, either from, like, I'm telling you, there's, like, Greek writers from, like, that wrote stuff very similar to this, like, a long time ago. I don't know if it was like they all, like, had. There's one I remember, like, he would like sleep on the floor for some reason because it made him like laying down on the floor for like 20 minutes a day or something interesting.
But, yeah, well, no, it's also so funny because there's a lot of little sayings that people have, or, like, beliefs that they have, and, like, there's probably no, like like facts behind them, but I was told one time, and this was when we were in the office, like never to put my purse on the floor.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And I've never heard that in my entire life. And I was like,
because like something about like
wealth and
Wealth,
like,
yeah.
And I was like, what the I've never heard that. But this one also said, like, I was looking up, I didn't write down, but I remember reading it last night. It was like putting like what you want like under your pillow and like
sleeping on it. Yeah,
sleeping on it. And I say it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning. Let's walk around the neighborhood with our suitcases because man, you don't know. I will insert Caesar and I'm walking around with our suitcases. If you love me, you'll do it.
We look like clowns walking around.
I guarantee you, there's gonna be at least one person in this neighborhood.
I remember seeing people do that like a few years ago, and
exactly.
That's what I'm saying is like you just think someone just got off the ship. They just got off the plane or something. They're walking around the neighborhood trying to find.
Yeah, let's make them think that. Like they don't have to know what we're doing.
Oh God, please help me.
No, we're gonna do it. It's gonna be fun. But yeah, I think after reading about it, I'm definitely less weary. I think there is some logic, some science behind this. Again, it goes back to like it's like your mindset.
Yeah, no, it is for sure.
Matters. And how we talk to ourselves. I put down how we talk to ourselves and what we believe we are capable of has a lot to do with what we achieve. And I think that's what like manifestation is at its core. And I definitely will be practicing some of these in the new year. We always create vision boards, but I'm like hike it up to 11. Like it's going to be like really great. I'm feeling really good about the new year. Like
me too.
I feel like Caesar and I, like if you're around us, I mean, we kind of say it to ourselves. We don't really say it like just in front of people, but we always say to each other, like we're on the brink of greatness. We're on the brink of greatness. And like, we've been saying that for the past couple months because like we've seen really like steps, like we've been taking steps in the right direction. And like, I really do think this year is when everything comes to fruition. And I like want to like say that too, like, this year can serve as like what you want it to serve. Like maybe it is a year where like it's going to be trial and tribulation, but like that will ultimately help you grow. Like the past 2 years, if I'm being honest, have been really, really difficult for me. And going through them, I definitely did not have a positive mindset. But looking back on the pain and looking back on some of the things I experienced, I knew that it was necessary for me to grow and for me to be here and to talk about it and to like let you know that it's okay. Like we're not all perfect all the time, you know, like it is hard. Like I talk about how it's a mindset is so important, but it also is hard to have like a positive mindset every day when it does feel like sometimes life is happening to you and like there are just things that you can't control. And like, how do you react in situations that are unfavorable? And it's hard to change your mindset to be positive when things sometimes suck. Like there's no two ways about it. Sometimes life does suck. Like, it's not always fair. But I think that 2023 is going to be a really good year for all of us. And I think that while we don't have full control, like there are things we can do to make our lives better. And that's kind of what this whole so why we started this podcast last year was like I've been so focused on growth because I've been so interested in like how people grow and how people like come back from certain situations because there were certain situations where I never felt like I'd come back from. And it's always been interesting to me to see the development of people over time, whether it be my friends or my family. And it's just, I think there's so much we know about it, but also so much that we don't. And I think a lot of it comes from experience, and I'm just glad that I get to share the experience not just with Caesar but with all of you,
everyone hearing or watching
on YouTube. I also have some really great goals for this podcast, and I want to make it the best it can be and helpful to people and inspiring and feel like they have a place in this world and they have comfort in knowing that they're not the only one struggling or the only one who's in pain or, the only one trying to be their best self, so yeah. Do you have any thoughts, Caesar?
On the topic on manifesting or just in general?
In general.
I mean,
in 2023, like what's your
yeah, I mean,
thoughts?
this year, as you know, obviously this is going up. It's gonna be the first podcast of the year. Actually, it's funny. And Monday is the first.
No, it's not.
Wait, what?
Tomorrow's the first.
Tomorrow's the first. Oh, Sunday's the first. Duh, my bad.
Caesar's like,
Stupid. Sorry. No, I had a weird week, but yeah, no, I feel like this year is gonna be a good year, and just gotta manifest it. You know. I'm gonna tell myself.
Also, if you've seen the show Manifest on Netflix,
Oh
pretty
man,
good.
talking about manifesting. Yeah, that's the first
It
thing
relates to this though. Like if
does.
you watch the show, it's very like you can see
Yeah.
why they named it
Mm-hmm.
that Manifest. So yeah, that's you don't have anything else.
No, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Caesar and I have to go get some grapes because we gotta eat 12 grapes because we're gonna manifest a new
year.
life this year. Not a new life, just our goals.
Yes.
But yeah, we're so happy to have you here. If you've made it to the end of this episode, I probably should have said this beginning. If you're listening on any podcast platform, please leave a review. Subscribe to the podcast. Like I think you can subscribe on like
Yeah,
Apple,
you can
like,
follow
to
or
like
subscribe, I
follow.
think, yeah.
Please just support us in any way that you can. We'd love to hear your feedback, even if it's negative. We're trying to grow here. If you absolutely hate anything we do, let us know. I'm not saying we'll change it because maybe we but we want to hear it. We want to hear from you. If you're listening on YouTube, please leave a comment and subscribe to our channel. We're 101 subscribers strong, and while the numbers don't matter really, we'll do this whether we had 10 or 1 million. It is nice to see that we can reach a larger audience and maybe, continue to have more of these conversations. And I want to be able to bring more people on the podcast that can talk about like their expertise, their experience. I think it's really good to hear from other voices with other experiences. And yeah, so this has been Growing Together with me, Sunny Vasquez.
And me, Cesar Santos.
We hope to see you again next week.
See you guys later.